Nintendo is my favorite publisher of all time, because they have a keen focus on the thing that games should always be about, the gameplay. That's not to say that story has no value to a game, but it should always be secondary, and I feel that many games hold back on ideas that would make their gameplay better because it would interfere with the story. But despite Nintendo getting it right with gameplay, they have recently utterly floundered with story across nearly every franchise. Now, most of them aren't even trying to be narratively entertaining, which is fine, but the ones that do go for storytelling are embarrassingly bad to the point where I just prefer it if the stories were boring instead of terrible. But it wasn't always like this. There have been several Nintendo games that killed it in the writing department, but this was many years ago. Paper Mario 1 and 2, Xenoblade 1, 3D Zeldas up to Breath of the Wild, and they've even had a few recent knockouts with Three Houses and Xenoblade 3, but there's one game by Nintendo that isn't just a good story by their standards, or even by JRPG standards. Pokémon Black and White are genuinely the best stories you can experience while holding a handheld, Steam Deck and Switch notwithstanding. So why is this? What does Black and White do differently from the rest of the lineup? It challenges its legacy and the franchise from where it came. We've all heard the Pokémon slave fighting analogy before, and it's incredibly accurate. This is because Pokémon comes from a more primitive time, where the inspiration wasn't an animal slave fighting ring, it was, what if we made a Dragon Quest where you could play as the monsters? The world was built around that concept, and in retrospect, what they came up with was terrifying. What Pokémon Black and White did was directly challenge that criticism and craft a narrative discussing the ethicalness of that simple idea they had 15 years ago. Was the concept of Pokémon a disgusting idea? Were they wrong to commercialize such an evil practice? This is like if the next Kirby game had him giving a deep introspection into his character and nature as an insatiable god whose glut can never be satiated, and how no creature in the universe can challenge his insurmountable stomach. Or if the next Mario had Bowser really figure out what it was about Princess Peach that attracted him to her, and why he felt the need to give his children a mother who's scared of him, and really dive deep into his feelings about women and role models in children's lives. While those are fantasies that will never come to pass, Pokémon went and actually did it. They challenged the logic of their own world to see if they could disprove the scrutiny around them and the inherent shadow hanging over their concept. This dilemma is presented to us multiple times throughout the game by the enigmatic N, who shows us a side of Pokémon we've never seen before, someone who abhors battles. When N confronts us about capturing animals to do battle for us, he isn't talking to the avatar, he's speaking directly to the player who has poked fun at this implication for years, but still partakes in it because Pokémon battling is fun. And if that was it, then Black and White already has one of the bravest stories ever told, because if they had messed this up, then it could have made the entire franchise fall apart forever, as even the developers might not have given a satisfying answer to their quandary. But Black and White also tackle a much more real-world topic through its story, which resonated with me a lot when I was 7 years old playing this game. I just didn't realize it until I was 19. Pokémon Black and White is a game designed for children that has the audacity to be about overbearing parents and breaking free of the chains your parents can deliberately or unintentionally put on you. This is shown through Bianca and N. With Bianca, her dad really wants what's best for her, but that love is stifling and ripping her dreams away from her because it's not what he envisioned for her. This scene may have sparked something in me, because around the time I played the game, I told my dad that I didn't want to play rugby anymore, and that I hated running around and being tackled, and this was hard for me because the reason I'd agreed to play rugby was to impress my dad and let him hang out with his friends while watching their kids play. This can be a wake-up call to kids that they get to pick their dreams and that the world doesn't get to decide for them, even if neither they nor their parents realize that they're making them unhappy. But just in case you missed that interpretation, it does the same thing much more overtly with N, showing how Ghetsis lied to and manipulated him into becoming what he wanted, not letting his adoptive son choose his own life. locking him away in a room that surrounds him with Pokemon hurt by people, creating a literal echo chamber for him to grow up in, and molding him into a figurehead for his own schemes. And it's Ian who breaks free of that control and takes his own life back from his father in the most climactic feat Pokemon has ever accomplished, conveying a mature and resonant message in a Pokemon game of all things. Pokemon Black and White had the gall to challenge its own concept and succeed with flying colours, while also conveying an emotional and relevant theme to an audience that might have needed to hear it the most. I'll be back in 2 days. In the meantime, here's a video discussing if Black and White even need remakes.